You know how the old saying goes, it's happy hour somewhere, and that where happens to be right here, and that time happens to be right now. Welcome to a special show coming to you live from Roddenberry Podcasts. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Holly Amos. Normally, we're here to talk about Star Trek, but today we're shifting our focus to Star Trek wines and spirits and inviting all of you to join us with your favorite beverage while we introduce you to some special guests.
Today, we'll meet some of the people on the inside of Star Trek Wines and Spirits. We'll get an inside look at their exclusive Captain's Table collection, and we'll even get a sneak peek at some of the products that they will be releasing later this year.
And we want to hear from you, so drop us a comment or question on Facebook and YouTube. We'll share those with our guests, and you can even let them know what types of products you'd like to see in the future from Star Trek Wines and Spirits.
Yeah, that's the part that I'm really looking forward to. Is I know what some of these are, I know what's coming up, and then I want to hear what other people have to say. So we got a lot to get into. So now is the perfect time to drop in your questions, your comments, your suggestions. Coming up on the program, you're going to meet Howard Jackowitz and Craig Spurrier from Star Trek Wines and Spirits, and then later on, do not miss our chat with master distiller Crispin Cain. He knows more about whiskey than just about anyone that I've ever met, except for maybe Holly. And he's going to take us on a deep dive into the Captain's Table line.
But first off, let's meet the people behind all of this, Howard and Craig.
Howard and Craig, welcome. How's it going, guys?
Hey, how's it going? Nice to see you.
Good.
Good to see you, Brad.
Yeah, nice to see you both. We've, of course, gotten to know you fellas over the time of your sponsoring some of the podcasts we do here at Roddenberry, and of course, what we do on stage at conventions. And it's been an absolute pleasure to get to know both of you and get to know the product line. And this is kind of a loose, chill hangout where we get to talk about what you do. And Howard, you put it very well that our goal today is to demystify a lot of the product line, and particularly the Captain's Table. So we're going to get to that. But I want one of you first to just give us the quick nutshell version of what got you here, like what got you to Star Trek Wines and Star Trek Spirits.
Wow. All right. That's a good question. Craig, you want to go or you want me to do that?
Why don't you take the wine part and I'll take the spirits part?
Okay. That
I
sounds
love
good.
that.
So one of my business partners was actually partnering with CBS and Star Trek on a cruise. And he called me up and said, Howard, you have to meet these people at Star Trek. They are great to work with and great marketers, and they have a lot of great ideas. And so we reached out to Star Trek and started a conversation. And we really had no idea what the reception to Star Trek wines would be when we launched. I think we actually launched our first product and we said, let's just make 1,701 bottles because we just didn't know whether it was going to be a thing or not. So we put a lot of energy and effort into those bottles. We started with the old Vine Zin, and we also did the Chateau Picard. And that's what kind of got us into the wine space. And I think we're 14 SKUs in on just the wine.
Wow.
And we really we started making our own bottles and really just got into it in a big way. I mean, it's a really fun project for us. We get to be really creative, and we're all Star Trek fans, so it's really not work. It's very fun for us. And then at some point, Star Trek came to us and they said, boy, you guys are doing a great job with the wines. We love what you're doing. Would you be interested in the spirits? And that is literally the thing that got us into the spirits thing. So I'll let Craig take it from there.
So yeah, while we were doing the wine and attending the shows in Vegas, everyone that would come to our booth would say, where's the Romulan ale? And we'd always would say, it's illegal in the Federation. We don't have it. So
Nice.
now that we have the license for spirits, that was our first product that we were working on. And it took us about 2 years to manufacture and replicate the Romulan ale bottle. And a very difficult mold to make. We went through 3 productions of this mold. It has a very high yield on it in the sense that it takes about 1 bottle out of every 10 are straight and vertical. So it is a love effort here that this design actually came to fruition. And with that, we were in search of a distillery partner and masters for the Romulan Ale Rye whiskey and the Romulan Ale vodka. And we found two partners for those two expressions. And we rolled out with the Romulan Ale Rye whiskey, which was a formulation by Larry Wu, who's a fantastic food scientist. And then with the vodka, we chose to work with a group out of Ukiah, California called Charbet. And they're a fifth generation family owned distillery that makes excellent vodka. It's 5-column distillation and very pure, just excellent vodka. So that was our first rollout into the spirits world. And then Howard and I were intrigued, we were spirits lovers as, we're hunters for good spirits. So Howard and I, we crisscrossed the U.S. from looking at distillers on the East Coast, the West Coast, and then we came upon Crispin, our distillery master, to build the Captain's Table program, which is a limited to release private barrel program that we just evolved because we are fans of Crispin's whiskey as well as just a quality product, and we can go into detail on that on the Captain's Table as we go along. But that's how we got into the spirit side of with Star Trek.
Well, we will certainly get there with the deep dive into the Captain's Table. I want to go back really quickly though, because you mentioned the Romulan Ale product, and I'm actually enjoying a little bit right now. So cheers to you all for that. It is an absolutely stunning bottle that it comes in. And that's one of my favorite things that you've made. And I've seen many people, they'll finish the product that's in there and then use it as a decanter because it also looks great with other spirits in it. Right. It's such a cool bottle. And speaking of people who I know who have done that, I just want to say hi to some of the folks in our chat. There's Anne Marie, there's Bob, hi, Holly's dad. There's Ernie, and then my brother in sound, Norman Lau, joining us for the chat here. He is seconding everything that we say. Star Trek wines and liquors are phenomenal, and he says that he loves that Crispin is such a fan of those old scientists, but he only uses this stuff for medicinal purposes. And hello to Heather. Hello to everyone. Oh, yeah. And by the way, Ernie, you mentioned the glassware. This is from Star Trek Unlimited. They did a terrific set along with a decanter as well. And it's the perfect thing for me to put my Romulan Ale Rye in and have a sip. So cheers to you.
Cheers. Mm-hmm. I will say I think one of the more fun parts of the Romulan Ale project was, we're at the Star Trek booth and we're talking to hundreds of people, and we were asking everybody, hey, what is Romulan Ale? And just that whole experience of asking people, what do you think that is? And I think we did a bunch of online polls, but yeah, that is the fun part of our job, is kind of, we get to come up with what these creations are. So that was certainly fun for us.
Absolutely. By the way, in the chat, Izzo's Place. Hi there, I'm late. It's okay. You're free to come and go as you please. He says, I have batch 3, but I haven't opened it yet. I need to have a Star Trek party to decant it. The bottle and packaging are very cool. Hold that thought. Okay, Izzo, because I've got a question for you coming up in a moment here about what you do with your collectible items from Star Trek Spirits. One quick thing, just a matter of clarification. So you mentioned Star Trek wines, you mentioned Star Trek spirits, you mentioned that Romulan ale was illegal for a time. StarTrekWines.com and StarTrekSpirits.com, same company, same people behind it, but there is a legal distinction. So that's why people might be a little bit confused about going from one place to the other. Is that right?
Yeah, very different laws as it relates to shipping direct to consumer for spirits and wine. We are trying to figure out how to do both in one, but it's fairly complex, and it's like talk to the governor is what I normally tell people. It's like it's the state laws that are going on, and yeah, we're just trying to that is why we have two separate websites. I know it can be a little confusing, and I know that a lot of customers do want to add one and one from the cart, but we're just not there yet with the state laws, so we'll get there.
Got it. So let's start out a little bit here about the process. We're going to talk to Crispin about how it's made, but I want to talk to you guys first about the process for getting to the captain's table, because that kind of goes back to what Izzo was saying about I have my bottle and it's batch 3, and so give us the rundown here.
Sure. Well, do you want the rundown of how we got? Give me one more level deep on that.
Okay.
What rundown do you want?
All right. So tell us the inspiration for the captain's table, and
Sure.
then for our viewers and listeners, what is their process for
Sure.
getting to that product?
I think that's for Craig and I. Listen, we're both whiskey enthusiasts. Craig was definitely on that bandwagon and trying to get me to come along for a long time, and I resisted. But I really, we're both big whiskey hunters. We're enthusiasts. We love the private barrels. We love the single barrels. And I think after we did our first whiskey, which was the rye, Craig and I were both like, man, let's make the very best bottle of whiskey out there. Like we were like, how can we make the best bottle ever? So to be honest, it really started with Crispin. I mean, we went and kissed a lot of frogs. We drank a lot of whiskey and we met a lot of distillery masters. And we were just looking for not only the right person, but just like the right whiskeys and the right quality level. And I think the day it was really a big day for me. It was like, I think it was August 11th, like a couple of years ago. We walked into Crispin's facility, and it was 8 a.m. and we tasted. He was like, I want you to taste this barrel. I hadn't had whiskey in like maybe 10 years. Like I hadn't drank a sip of whiskey.
And you did it at 8 a.m.?
At 8 a.m. And Chris poured it.
You're a hero.
And pulled it out of the barrel, and we literally were like, oh my God. Like there were a bunch of people that were real experts in the room besides me, but we bought the barrel on the spot. Like that was what started it. And then really Craig's our designer, and he's the one that kind of, we started saying, oh, well, how do we craft a vessel that it measures up to the quality of whiskey that we just tasted? So it's really the whiskey first.
And then we tapped into Paramount's creative team, John Van Sitters, and some of the other prop masters within the organization. John Van Sitters actually came up with the name Captain's Table, and that fed the program, because there is a lore behind the Captain's Table, and Howard has the one of the books to show.
I was to say, I think we have a visual aid here.
Yeah. So basically, after John said, oh, why don't you do the Captain's Table? That's perfect. So I grabbed the book and read it. I mean, it's actually a fantastic book. The premise is it's basically an interdimensional bar that kind of transcends time and space, and captains only can come into the bar. And in order to get their drink, they have to tell a story. So the book is filled with like Riker telling fantastic stories in order to get his drink, and there's all these captains. But I think we really love the whole concept of camaraderie and story. I'm a big storytelling fan, and just a gathering of people telling stories and drinking whiskey and enjoying it. And we thought, man, that is a crazy cool concept, and I think we really loved it from the beginning. So that's where the Captain's Table name comes from, is the book. It's a great book.
I like to think that that's just a level of hazing reserved only for Riker, that everybody else is just there cool having drinks, but they make him tell stories and they're never good enough, so he never actually gets to try the whiskey. So By the way, I do very quickly want to get to the process of getting into the captain's table. We had a really interesting question here from Drac Corex. I hope I'm saying that right. Do Howard and Craig have a personal favorite among the Star Trek wines or spirits products in terms of drinking?
I mean, the captain's table, absolutely. Yeah, we have all of them. Personally, yes, the captain's table. I mean, whether there's a certain batch that I'm particularly more fond of, that's a good question. But yeah, I would say if I'm reaching for a Star Trek wine or spirit right now, it's absolutely the captain's table.
Same here. Captain's Table Batch 2 and upcoming Batch 5, which will be out later this year, are the two expressions that I gravitate towards. And on the wine side, the Klingon blood wine is my favorite. That Cabernet Sauvignon from Lodi, California is a hearty Cabernet. It matches up with the Klingon ethos, and it's a great drinking wine.
Yeah, on the wine side, I would say it's the Ryzen Rosé. That stuff is fantastic. Like put that in the fridge and on a hot summer day.
Today.
It's not too sweet. It's really nice. I would say those are my two favorite of the things we've done.
Excellent. Oh, by the way, that was Marina. So I just thank you for the correction there, because I do not see her name or picture come up like that. Heather is saying that she loves the Canar. Dennis, I'm going to hold that question for just a moment. Holly, I have to ask you, do you have a favorite among these?
Well, we got to try the captain's table last year
Yeah, we did.
on stage. And aside from the fact that that was just a delightful experience to be able to drink whiskey on a stage, that was probably my favorite. And I am a cab girl, so I like the Cabernet Sauvignon too.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm going to champion maybe an unsung hero of the line, and that is the first one that Howard mentioned, the Old Vine Zinfandel.
Yeah, that's a great one. And that one originally, I think, was made by winemaker Phil Hurst, like legendary winemaker. And really, like that's another thing that's interesting. Before we got into the spirits, all of the wines that we were making, we're trying to find the right winemaker. So we did have that culture in the wine business. So, we had Andrew Nelson, who was 40 under 40 winemaker, Phil Hurst, like I said, legendary winemaker. But yeah, we do always try to find the right person that's going to craft the spirit to make the project work for us.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's
all right. So talk to us about the process for getting to the captain's table for our listeners, because by the way, we have Mary here in the audience who says, we have bottles 1 and 3. I sure wish there was a way to get bottle 2. Coincidentally, Craig's favorite. But tell us that there is a process. So help us to understand that a bit.
Well, you mean the process of how to acquire a bottle?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. So basically, a barrel of whiskey yields around 217 to 200 bottles of whiskey. So what we do is we release one batch at a time, and we do one barrel at a time. And we build a list, and we like currently right now, if you go to Star Trek Spirits, the captain's table, we are like taking, reservations for batch number 4. So everybody that signs up to that will be put into we'll put it in the spinner and pull out 200 names, and those people will be emailed and say, hey, now here's a link. You can now purchase the captain's table. And if they don't purchase, it rolls over to the next group. But basically, we do 200 at a time and then shut the list down and start the next one. So we are on batch 4, and I think we're going to release batch 4 within about a week or 2 weeks. So if you do want into batch 4, you can sign up and check that out. But ultimately, that's how we do it, one barrel at a time, which is a cool thing. I mean, I think it's fun.
So batch 4, you can sign up for now, and
Correct.
then batch 5, you'll start taking names.
I think at the convention, or maybe like right before that, we'll open up that list. And I think last year, or when we went to San Francisco, I think we set it up so that if you are at the convention and you sign up, you can kind of be guaranteed one of the bottles. So that's another benefit of signing up at the convention, is like if you're doing it there, you're kind of guaranteed one of those bottles.
Nice. Well, there you go. Let's see, Carl.
Carl, yeah.
Yeah, right. You just
Carl
saw that.
says that he signs up and he's never been selected. So if you come to the convention, sign
There you
up.
go. But that's something that I mean, look, there's the Star Trek fan in me. There is just the collector in me, something that is such a limited release
Right.
because by its very nature, it has to be that limited release. And we'll talk about what that is. So now, okay, for our friend Mary, who says that she has 1 and 3, but is missing number 2, that's just going to be an aftermarket thing at this point, right? That's going to be eBay.
Unless you can pry it out of Craig's hands, like
That's right.
yeah, I mean they're incredibly limited edition. I mean these, I guess if you want a visual of it, when you walk into Crispin's facility, he's got a wall of barrels up there, and once one of them is bottled and put out into the market, they're gone. So these are one barrel at a time, and the other thing that's interesting is every barrel is very different.
Yeah.
They're all very different expressions. So whether batched, and the other thing that is interesting is like, we're tasting these samples and tasting them before we go to market. So Crispin sends us these great these little jewels that we get, and we get like a little box of these bad boys, and then we get the notes. So Crispin, sends over all these really detailed tasting notes of each barrel and what's involved. And so Craig tasted independently and I tasted independently. And then we invite our whiskey enthusiast friends over and we check it out. And then ultimately we get on the phone or Zoom call with Crispin and he walks us through. And that's another part of that's probably my favorite part of the process, because we're trying all these great whiskeys and they're very different. And also, when we bring Crispin in, Crispin is really a wealth of knowledge and has been doing this for so long that he just has a lot of information, and the way he describes his process and everything is just fascinating to us. So,
Holly.
I just thought it was funny that he said his favorite part was drinking the whiskey.
of course,
I mean, obviously.
Holly, someone's got to do it.
I
what
know
mean?
it's such a rough job.
Someone's
Okay,
got to do it.
But that takes me back to Izzo. I haven't forgotten about you, who said, I have batch 3, but I haven't opened it yet. I need to have a Star Trek party to decant it. The bottle and the packaging are very cool. Now, we've talked offline about this,
Right,
because that's something that I totally understand. You buy the thing and then you don't want to touch it. And this is really troubling. So partly my question is to the audience, to those of you who have this. Have you opened it? Have you tried it? Have you taken out the challenge coin? Because we haven't even talked about the challenge coin. I want to know what those of you who have bought any of the batches have done with the challenge coin. What are you guys hearing from the people who buy Captain's Table?
I mean, Craig, you want that one or?
Well, we're hearing that they don't want to open it just because they want to keep it and save it, have the collectability of it. But you got to open it.
Yeah,
because it has the challenge coin in it, which this gets you entry into the private tastings we have, as well as tasting some of the futures that Crispin has pulled together, some tank samples or barrel samples. We're gonna have some barrel samples that we'll be tasting through in Vegas. So we encourage you to open it. There's more to come, more batches to come. But if you can't open it and you can attend one of the conventions, we will have some samples to taste.
It is really funny, though. This is something that we, as a team, talk about internally all the time, because the whole intention of the coin was like, okay, they're going to get the Captain's Table and then they're going to come to the tasting, and everybody, if you want into the thing, you got to show your coin. It's just like how it was intended. But we're seeing and understanding that some people are just don't want to open it. We highly encourage you to open them. I mean, you gotta just crack them open and enjoy the whiskey. I mean, I have my bottles and all of them are open, and I think they're really meant to be enjoyed. and we don't put that good of a spirit in the bottle for them to sit on the shelf and collect dust. Like, we really want people to partake. I think it's a big yeah, it's a big part of it. So yes, don't collect them, drink them is my advice for sure.
Bottles are still collectible, even if they're empty, you guys.
Yeah.
I think it's there's a lot of collector mentality going on with, like, they just want to hold on to it forever. But yeah, we want people to crack out the coin and bring it. We're going to do something at this year's Captain's Table gathering where if you have your coin, you're going to get access to something. Maybe Chris is bringing a lot of cool stuff. Maybe we're going to hold back a couple only for people that have the coin, because we really want them to have it. So
Nice. Nice.
Ugh.
Well,
My dad
well,
is asking John if you and I have bottles and if we've opened them.
okay, well, here's the thing. I don't have the captain's table bottles, but I have a multitude of Star Trek wines and spirits. And honestly, I was not kidding when I talked about that Old Vine Zinfandel. When I go somewhere and bring a bottle of wine, I bring that.
Yeah.
Because it goes with everything, and I happen to just love that wine. I'm drinking my Romulan ale right now. So yeah, I absolutely drink them. I think they're terrific. And I do want to mention a couple of great comments up here. Well, let's see. April says, "We love our coins. They are stunning." And Norman, wait, where'd you go, man? Norman said that whiskey is meant to be drunk. And make memories with friends. Yes, you don't say whiskey, you drink it with friends and make memories.
Yes.
That
I
was-
love
yeah.
Norman, man.
Yeah, exactly. So some great comments in here, great questions that we will get to. But you know what? We got to bring in our next. We've mentioned his name so many
Yes.
times. It's like Beetlejuice, where you say his name enough and he manifests. So, welcome to the show, Master Distiller. What a great title, Crispin Cain. Welcome. How's it going today?
Thank you. It's going very well. I'm happy to be here with you all today and talk about what we're doing.
Excellent. Well, I tell you what, why don't you give us a little bit of your background? But we'll get into the whiskey in a second. I want to know about your background as a Star Trek fan.
My background as a Star Trek fan goes back to 1966 when I was 3 years old. And I have 3 older brothers, and it was the only time I got to stay up past my bedtime, where mom and dad allowed us to stay up late, was to watch Star Trek. And I loved Star Trek as a kid. I loved Mr. Spock when I was a little kid. And then when it ended and went into syndication, then it was on at 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. or something like that. And I forget. I mean, we'd eat dinner 1 hour and Star Trek was on the other. And so it came on at this reasonable hour. I didn't have to stay up late. And the greatest thing was getting to be in my teens and understanding Gene's vision for the future, and bringing that into reality. Going to the convention, for example, everyone there is so terrific, and bringing Gene's vision of the future into the present is really cool, and it inspires me to do good work in the world, whether it's my relations with people or my work in my job. And I want to tell you that when batches 1 and 2 came out of Captain's Table, I'm connected with a couple of Star Trek fan pages on Facebook, of course. And a couple of people posted pictures. Oh, I got one, right? And the comments started coming in. Oh, that's a great package, but what's the stuff like inside? Suggesting it might not be good. I won't use the epithets that were expressed, but I let that run for 24 hours. And then I chimed in and said, look, I'm the guy who makes that stuff. And we went out of our way to put something really fantastic in this fabulous package for Star Trek, for the fans. I urge any of you to open a bottle and report back in 24 hours. And so people opened the bottle, and each one of them that did, their first comment started with the letters OMG.
and
Nice.
how great this is. And so I just love being part of this team with Craig and Howard and other people, and connecting them with my team here at the distillery to really make something that's fantastic and that represents the work we want to bring to the world, and bring our finest, put our finest foot forward, and do something great for Star Trek. And it's a dream come true that I didn't know I was dreaming until these guys came along and said, we want to do Star Trek Spirits. And I said, well, let's cruise my barrels and find out what you like. And that's really how it began. And then, into the present, I tell you, I'm a big fan of Lower Decks, big fan of Strange New Worlds, big fan of Discovery. The work that that whole team is doing on those productions, I really love. And those are the series I've been watching. I know there's more to it, but that's what I've been looking at. And it's been a lot of fun. Through all the evolution of Star Trek, and then to finally be somehow connected with Star Trek is just too freaking awesome.
That's so cool. All right. Well, here's the part where I just get out of the way because, Holly, you know a lot more about whiskey than I do. And I've got notes here about like water and barrels.
I don't know as much as Crispin, but
Well, so here's the part where we all get educated, because I'm very curious about, these subtle differences that go from one barrel to another. And please correct me if I'm wrong here, but part of the thing that makes this so special is that when you talk about it is a single barrel product, meaning that, okay, you have a barrel, that is the whiskey, that is the one that is going out for that batch. And when it's done, it's done. You get about 200 bottles out of that. That's it, right?
Well,
am I correct?
Yeah. When a barrel's done, a barrel's done.
Yeah.
I am a small distillery, and I can. Last year, I filled 108 barrels with whiskey of different kinds. Okay, and that's it. That's all there is from last year. And there's bourbon, there's malt whiskey, there's whiskey I made from corn and wheat, and this is it. For last year. In previous years, I've made rye malt whiskeys. I've made wheat malt. I've made bourbon. I've made bourbon pretty consistently since 2012 or 2013, something like that. And that mash bill changes a little bit from year to year. And then, matching up fine spirits with good wood, good barrels. I'm currently buying barrels from Canton Cooperage in Lebanon, Kentucky. And, that wood that I'm getting from them is so wonderful. They understand what I'm doing. They understand what's happening. And, my background in this is I've been distilling professionally as of August 10th, next month. It'll be 35 years. And I started at a brandy distillery. And I'll tell you, I started in wine 41 years ago when I was 20.
Wow.
And wine led me to making brandy. And I'm in Mendocino County, California, which is in wine country. And in 85, I was working at a winery that was vinifying wine for a brandy project. And there was a gentleman here from Cognac, France, that had brought old stills with him to make brandy here. And I had the great good fortune to get a call from them in the summer of 89. And would I come interview for the job as a brandy master's assistant? Well, you bet I will. And so I went to the interview and got the job. And it was, that guy was tough, but he had high standards for quality and had a reason he wanted to be tough and wanted me to, learn it well and not slack in any way. And it was an ordeal. The apprenticeship was really an ordeal. And eventually, my now former employer helped me get started in business, leased me space in their distillery, leased me their equipment, let me get licensed with my own company.
And then when he retired, he sold me the equipment for a
Wow.
song. Or, it's the kind of thing that, old stills from cognac. The whiskey goes through a still that was made in cognac 230 years ago. And that's the
Whoa.
kind of thing, like old musical instruments that go to special people. Well, these people recognize what I'm doing. I'm very privileged to be able to receive those items like that.
You're playing the
Because
Stradivarius of whiskey.
Mm.
a
That's
bit, yeah, yeah. And then, my father's family was from Ireland, and they landed ultimately in Minnesota in the early part of the 20th century. And they had a dairy and a distillery that ran until the early 1950s. And although my father wasn't in spirits, I often heard the stories of my grandparents and their efforts, and that was one of the inspirations for going to that interview and knowing that this thing's in my blood. So here we are today, and I'm very privileged to be able to do what I do and be able to bring my best to Star Trek, for example. I just I
Now
really
the,
love
now the
working with
student
Howard.
is the master, right?
yeah.
Well,
I said now the student is the master. I'd love to
there
just
you
share.
go.
I'd love to share a really quick story. Like
Please.
when we visited Crispin's facility, when we were there, I remember really taking a moment and watching the interaction between Crispin and his assistants, and it was like a master apprentice conversation. And I was really just, I don't know, it really stuck with me, the level of respect that the people that were working there spoke to Crispin, and that whole relationship. I left there like, wow, that was cool. Like I just was wildly impressed with, and I get the sense that that's kind of what Crispin was experiencing as when he was the apprentice. But it was very special moment. I thought it was really cool.
Nice. Well, I want to talk a little bit about what makes the captain's table barrels unique. Like, what are the qualities that you're looking for? What makes batch 1, batch 2, batch 3, up to 5? What makes those so special, and what should our audience and all these tasters and enthusiasts be looking for?
Good question. First off, we were in another podcast on this subject, getting Captain's Table reviewed. The guys tasting it, I think Whiskey Tangent, said this about it, that a lot of other whiskeys they're reviewing, there's some fault they have to ignore to appreciate the good things about it. And they said, yours doesn't have any of those faults. And this is one of the highest compliments I think I've gotten in a long
Nice.
time. And
Nice.
to have others recognize the quality I'm putting in the barrel and ultimately the glass is important. My job is to listen to the consumer and hear what they say. Listen to the people who want to market my product and hear what they say, and give them something that they can get behind and put to their lips and consume. And so when you put a glass of the whiskey to your nose and smell it first before you taste it, you'll find wonderful aromas of vanilla and oak and maybe malt and butterscotch, and those kinds of things are to be tasted in the whiskey as well. And it's, I believe, a wonderful experience. And each one has been a little different. I'm careful about selection of ingredients. I have a control of fermentation, distillation, aging, ultimately every step of the process. I'm there for it, and I bring my best to the captain's table, and this is part of the deal. Let's do that. So ultimately, some of these have characters, like I said, of malt and vanilla, citrus. You'll get citrus peel in there, sometimes even chocolate. It's just, wide variety of flavors, including nuts and dried fruit. There's just some amazing flavors that emanate from whiskey once it's been aged and you experience it in your environment, with whatever you're having, either it's with your friends or at home alone, even, or with just a special person. Um, Really, this is an experience to be savored.
Oh, it looked like you were going to say something, Holly. Please.
No,
Go
I was
ahead.
just thinking about when we were tasting it on stage last year and some of the notes that I got. I think one of the strongest notes that I got, and I mean, it differs amongst tasters. It largely has to do with your palate specifically. But I was getting a lot of apricot last year in the batch that we were tasting, which I thought was delightful. So I like when there's different profiles in the whiskeys that I get to try.
Another just interesting part of the Captain's Table program, it's like, yes, Craig and I are huge bourbon, whiskey, rye enthusiasts, but ultimately, like, Crispin's the captain. Like, we're letting him guide where we go, and his experience. And it's an interesting conversation, Holly, that we have internally, because we'll try samples and some of them will be part of, like, oh, that's my palate, that's what I like, and some of them won't be. But it's like the idea of putting out 10 unique barrels, 10 unique expressions, all different and all kind of guided by Crispin. That's the very exciting part of the project, that we get to kind of be part of that. Yeah, so yeah, we are letting Crispin kind of take the reins, or be the captain of that ship.
And the attributes that Crispin brings to the table that sets us above the rest of, I think, of all spirits out there, is that his selection of quality grains, his yeast, sterilization of his equipment, the temperature that he distills, and then how he selects from the head, heart, and tail. And Crispin, you got to go into that, because we don't cut corners. Crispin is very specific on where he makes that cut, and the yield that we get from it, that product, is very high. And most distilleries out there, look at the economics, and they're cutting, more of the heart, more of the head, more of the tail, to get more yield out of this and more volume out of to put in the bottle.
I feel like when whiskey distilleries do that, though, there's a level of harshness in their product that you guys don't have at all.
Right. So let me talk about that then. And thank you both, for Holly and Craig, for speaking to those things. So the double distillation process I use is still the same one that was taught to me by my master in this craft, Monsieur Hubert Germain Robin from Cognac. And his family has been making brandy and cognac for centuries. They've been there since 1604. And the tradition of distillation I'm a part of has been master to apprentice, documented for 500 years. And they think it's really 1,000 years old. And so what I've been taught is careful use of the fire under the copper pot still, so that it's not too high and doesn't present that harshness into the final product. And then condensation temperature is very important. And this is like proprietary verbal information that is not written down. It goes from master to apprentice, making the cuts in that second distillation, the heads, the heart, the tails, and having no regard for economics on that day, but rather the quality of the product, and being good about it, not being tempted to take too much heart. I think Craig was alluding to that, and keeping with the purity of the product. And then that heart is clearer than rainwater. Oh, amazing flavor comes through in the pot still. And the finished distillate that day will be about 140 proof. And I add rainwater before it goes into the barrel at 60 to 62.5% alcohol for aging. And these things, and I'll go back to fermentation as well. Um, Clean fermentation, sterile equipment, clean fermentation. I don't do open fermentations at all. I don't allow other microbes in. I use a specific set of enzymes and yeast that do not leave off flavors, but actually enhance the flavor of the malt and the grains we use. And this is so important. And then to ferment to dryness to where there's no gluten, starches, or sugars left allows me to go into a direct fire copper pot still and have clean fractions during distillation. And it just makes all the difference in the world. And then to extract that finest heart so that we can enjoy a really pure spirit that is flavorful and fine. And this is the key.
That was so poetic. I just want to bask in that for a moment.
And honestly, like with a guy like Crispin working together with us, why would we not just let him,
right.
drive this boat or drive
Right.
the ship? It's really, we really are honored to be able to work with Crispin. He's
Well, look,
great.
we've got some great questions, and some I'm going to save for a little bit because I do want to tease this because when we get to the end of the show, we are going to show off some upcoming products, but we are asking all of you, what do you want to see from Star Trek Wines and Star Trek Spirits? I have in mind some that I know that you already want. But please drop those in the comments. Norman, our own Norman Lau, left a couple of great questions here that I really want to get to. So, Crispin, Howard, Craig, for all of you, first of all, any recommendations for food pairings?
That's a great question.
With the spirits, with Captain's Table. And then, just so I don't forget it here, he was wondering if the heat this summer is affecting the storage and racking of the barrels. Are there environmental factors you have to be concerned about?
Oh, good question. I'm in Northern California. It's been pretty hot up here the last couple of weeks. The cellar is heavily insulated and usually doesn't get above 78 or 80 degrees. I try to keep the humidity at about 50% or a little higher, maybe in as high as 65. The barrels are on 3 racks high. And so most of the new spirit is on the top rack for the first year or two. And then I start moving them to lower rack. Is warmer up at the top rack and cooler at the bottom. And I rely on that heat on that top rack. Barrel aging is really essential because what's happening is not only is it picking up color from the oak, and by the way, all the color in my whiskey is from the oak. I add no artificial color, no caramel coloring. It's only the oak and nothing else. So what's happening there is the whiskey is also evaporating through the staves. And you step in the building and the smell in the building is absolutely wonderful because the angels are taking their share and you can smell the whiskey. So what's also happening, it's like slowly simmering a sauce. It's becoming thicker, more concentrated, and the flavors become a little more compact and becomes oakier. And all of that is something that we want. So the answer is, the hot weather is essential, but then so's the cold weather. We're in Northern California, and the place we're at in Redwood Valley, California, is one of the lowest elevations in the valley. And so on those dry, cold Januaries that we get, we'll see temperatures as low as 13 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit on the coldest mornings. And so I rely on the cold as well as the heat that we get. Last week, we saw 117 degrees, which we've never seen before. Today, it's 108 degrees right now outside. And it's 80 degrees in the cellar. And I'm liking the weather. It's the right thing.
Nice. And if we can go back to Norm's question about food, what do you guys have found that good pairings are? I'm a vegetarian, so my suggestions would only be vegetarian food.
Well, I'm the odd man out. I really don't really mix food and whiskey. If anything, I like maybe some roasted peanuts or something, but I really just like to, when I'm drinking the whiskey, I really just like to drink it
By
on the,
itself.
yeah. And also maybe, I mean, like I said, maybe I'm just an odd duck, but I don't like pairing whiskey and food, but I'd love to hear what Crispin and Craig think.
I pair it with a nice cigar
There you go.
or a
I
fine
think you
cigar.
stole Crispin's answer there.
That's right. Even cigars are for vegetarians. Pardon me, Holly.
Yeah.
It's
All right.
I
So
will,
you guys are purists then.
I mean,
well,
Crispin, do you pair food with your whiskey?
I mean,
yeah,
I do sometimes. I usually will have the whiskey by itself first, and then I'll have a second glass with food.
Look, I tell you, I told this story not too long ago that I was in Scotland a couple of years ago with my folks, and anytime we would go, we would do a distillery tour. We went to one distillery that I will not name, but but it was not great, and we knew it wouldn't be great going into it. We're looking forward to the better one later, and we tried three of their glasses, and each one was served with a piece of chocolate that was paired to that whiskey. The chocolate was the best thing. Their their whiskeys were not good. However, it did show me that, you know, a good chocolate paired with the right whiskey can be great. So I do like that quite a bit. And then, oh wait, I don't want to miss some of these other questions that came in. Holly, your dad,
When my
Bob.
dad asked,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
how long are these whiskeys in general aged?
oh, good question. The in general, the youngest thing out of my cellar is 3 years old, but we have presented for Captain's Table older whiskeys than that. There may be a 3 year old in the mix somewhere, but we've bottled a rye whiskey that was actually a combination of finished whiskeys that were 8 to 13 years old, even.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
so I've been
Okay.
making whiskey or commercially now for 14 years. And so that's the old, I still have a couple of barrels from 2010 that I'm using for blending in the cellar. And then
Mm.
2012, I have a little bit of 2011 left, but 2012 is in the mix. 13 and 14, I don't have any 15 left, I don't think, because I bottled all of that. Then 2016, 2017. I think we bottled all of 2018. So you get the idea. And, bourbon, the rules on bourbon with the federal government has to be a minimum of 2 years old, but I
Yeah.
just don't bottle them that young. So we go out of our way to get good woods. We may as well take advantage of that as long as we can and make it good. Malted rye, I have rebarreled after being an American oak for as much as 30 months. I've rebarreled into used cognac barrels, and that's been very successful, and that's people really like that. And I have bourbon and used cognac barrels that have not released yet. I buy barrels from Kentucky, Missouri, and Minnesota for the American oak, and they all have their qualities that we rely on. Um, the southern woods are a whiter grain and have a certain terroir, and the oak from Minnesota has a tighter grain and gives a lot more color and flavor, and so that's aging. Yeah.
Nice.
And I
Uh,
think batch 4 is 100% malted rye as well, like
hmm.
the one
Mm-hmm.
that's about to get released. So
Yeah.
Izzo says I'm whiskey hunting while I listen to this. So Izzo, let us know what you get. I want to go back to this question about pairings because that kind of leads into a question about the right way to taste. And I know that there might be variations on what is quote unquote right or correct. Norman earlier brought up the neat glass, which Crispin, I know that you and Norman had a chat about that last year at the convention. But I'm curious, what to you is the best way to sample your product?
Well, it does vary upon taste, and even with me, there's times where um, I will drink whiskey neat. We've gone to a lot of effort to get it to that point. Um, and so I do drink more whiskey neat than I do anything else. But then on the other hand, um, I will put whiskey in a rocks glass with one big rock sometimes. My wife and I both like that. And then my wife makes the best Manhattans on the planet. And so there's no denying that and no saying she's done anything wrong with it because she'll get the best vermouth and the best this and that and make really great Manhattans. And so I at first, years ago, I was just neat and nothing else. And as I've gotten older, I've realized there's these other experiences to be had with whiskey, and why limit ourselves? So find out what you like. The flavors we present in these products are very compact. And once you start adding a little something to it, whether it's a piece of ice or what have you, it actually expands and brings out the flavors in a marvelous way.
Mm.
And so find out what you like and go do that with this whiskey because you will not be disappointed. You will love it.
Yeah,
Nice.
I drink whiskey both ways, and I think for me it really depends on the weather. Like I'll drink it neat during the winter time when I want to feel warm, but in the summertime, like right now, I would be drinking it um on the rocks. And I think that having a little bit of water, even if you just put like a drop of water in there, it opens it up. So your guys' whiskeys do well either way, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I
I like to
enjoy
drink it out of either a Glencairn neat or in an old fashioned. I mean, Craig's definitely a better mixologist than I am. He makes really good cocktails. But I love the old fashioned. I'm kind of stuck on the old fashioned or neat. But if I'm drinking Captain's Table, I kind of always would just want to drink it by itself and just enjoy the flavors.
Yeah, and I like it in a nice Sazerac. Um,
Oh yeah.
Frozen
Yeah, Craig
glass,
makes a great Sazerac. I can attest to that.
just with a little absinthe rinse and Peychaud bitters and a lime and lemon twist. I mean, it's very simple, but Crispin whiskey really expands, like he said, in a Sazerac. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's so crazy about making a cocktail is that, things like bitters, there's 100 types of bitters, and each one completely changes the whole, composure and complexion of the cocktail. So, yeah, sometimes it is nice just to drink. I'm going neat more these days, and I started with the old fashioned. So.
Nice. Let's see. Izzo says it's a good day. Larceny, batch 524, 1792 foolproof, and a Kentucky Spirit, ONE, or on E. I don't know that. Said impulse control engine circuit is broken. So sorry. Good job, but also sorry. And yeah, big shout out for a Sazerac. But before we move on here, because we definitely want to wrap up things and talk about what is coming in the future. Mystics asks if you have your own label, Crispin.
Oh yes. I have two labels I'm putting whiskey in. One is Mendocino Spirits, and the other is Low Gap.
All right.
And you
What's your
can,
URL, Crispin? I highly encourage people to go check out Crispin's stuff because that's how we got introduced to Crispin, and he's got great. What is your URL?
Okay, so there's two places that I recommend looking for my stuff at, and because I have mendocinospirits.com, which is my retail URL, but as a producer, I'm only able to ship to California, Arizona, and Kentucky because of all the weird rules because I'm a producer. But then whiskeyshopusa.com has a few of my things, and they have a good price on Mendocino Spirits. Captain Fletcher's Reserve 8-year-old rye. The only place you can get that for $99, by the way. And they ship to almost every state in the union and a few of the possessions and Puerto Rico, which is rare. and they have a shop in London and a shop in San Francisco, and those guys are great, and they just have everything in their shop. So, but mendocinospirits.com, and plus you're all welcome to come go there, and you can find out where I'm located. You're welcome to come to the distillery. I have retail hours, and we have an open house twice a year. Our Father's Day weekend open house just passed, but the next one is the Saturday before Thanksgiving in November. And there's live music and a barbecue and the whole thing, and it's lots of fun. So
I like the sound of this. Excellent. We've been teasing this, that we're going to talk about some upcoming and future products. And actually a good question here that is tangentially related. This is from a listener here with no name on their handle. Have you all approached Paramount CBS to have a bottle of the Captain's Table used in an episode of a Star Trek episode as a relic from a past time, like, say, 2024?
I don't think we've ever had that conversation, but we have had bottles that we've produced of the wine we have had it used in the show before. But we should that's a great recommendation. I think they should do that immediately.
Well, I mean, what I love, and from the beginning, we've always said this to our audience. Something that I love is that you created a product, first of all, that was, a consumer product meticulously based on what we see on screen. So you work very much hand in hand with John Van Sitters and other people at CBS to say, okay, what we sell, we want to be exactly like what is seen on screen.
Right.
But then the tables turned because they ended up using your products on screen. Mm-hmm. So what you have from Star Trek Wines and Star Trek Spirits is screen accurate, because it can't help but be screen accurate.
Yeah.
So
that is just another thing that's fun about the project, maybe a little behind the curtain, is Star Trek and the Paramount team are fantastic. Like, they have real experts that we bounce ideas off of, and we're always kind of saying, hey, what do you think of this? Is this accurate? And they're really great at kind of helping us make sure that we stay canon and in the Star Trek universe. And they're really great to work with. Also, do you mind if I just throw one quick thing out?
Please. Yeah.
Most people see Craig and I at these events, but we do have a small but mighty team that we work with. So there's Rosie, and there's Heather, and there's Esteban and Bill. And yeah, they all are just working super hard behind the scenes, making all this happen. So I just wanted to make
sure
that it wasn't just Craig and I and Crispin. We have a whole, we have other people kind of really working hard behind the scenes to make all this stuff happen. So
absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk about the fun stuff that is coming up. And I do know that I've seen some recommendations in the chat, which we'll share here at the end, and we'll get your quick takes on those. But let's talk about, between now and the end of the year, some of the things that people can look forward to seeing come down from your product line. I know that we've been talking about some boxes, some new packaging that we're expecting. I'm going to ask Earl to put up on screen. There's the new Romulan box, and Craig, you can tell us about this. There it is.
Cool.
All right.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, so we have we're developing a new Romulan ale bottle, which is one of the props that were in the show, but we did a stepped version, and this is the second version that we see a lot in studio. So we created this tube, which is a great container for the V2 of the Romulan ale, and we are going to have some ready to drink cocktails that would be inside this tube.
Nice.
And it's just a fantastic package, and the liquid inside is going to be delicious.
You've already got people commenting on that, saying gorgeous.
It's been super cool. And also, I think what we're doing with just the Romulan ale stuff is we're doing line extensions with that bottle, because it is an incredibly interesting bottle. Like Craig said, we have a new version that we'll show people at the convention. So we have version 2 of Romulan ale, but we are planning on doing other things in those bottles beyond we have some cool things coming. But yeah, there's a ready to drink that's on the way.
Nice. By the way, Ernie says that makes me nostalgic for the shoulder pad era. So, and of course, a natural question. Mystic says, when can I get that box?
That the tube that should be.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these things that we're going to talk about are going to be available for the fourth quarter. So in
Right.
time for the holidays. We are really excited. Craig's got one there. I mean, we are excited about our Captain's Table gathering in Vegas because we are going to bring all these things that we're showing tonight, and we're going to let our Captain's Table crew. That's part of what it's like to be a member of the Captain's Table, is we're going to show them all the new stuff that we're working on. So
Okay. So there's more incentive to get that challenge coin out of the
absolutely.
packaging, right?
Maybe we're going to hide those new things only to people that bring the coin.
Yeah, there we go. There you go. Put them in a separate room. Yeah. Let's show off the next product, and that is the well, Craig, you were talking earlier about how one of your favorite products is the Klingon blood wine.
Yes.
Let's see the new Klingon box, which looks super cool. All right, tell us about this. Yeah, you got Holly's attention.
Howard can, I mean,
we've been working on this thing for a while. This is a vessel that holds 2 bottles of the Romulan ale. It's very cool. I don't know if you can really see it, but as you unfold the top of it, there's bathlets that hold.
Oh, the batlets are hinges.
Hinges.
They're the hinges. On the back of the box is a whole story that was written by the Klingon Language Institute that they helped us craft it. It's all about the rite of ascension. Very cool stuff going on in the back, but it's really just meant to be like a special bar piece that you house your Klingon blood wine in. And it took us quite a long time to develop this, but the hinges they're pretty badass.
That's so cool. So, all right, we're also talking Q4 for that one as well, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And then we also want to show the Advent calendar because there's a lot going on with this.
Yeah.
And
to say, this is the first time anybody has ever seen any of this. This is something we've been working on for months. This is a Advent calendar. There's 24 mini bottles of distinct wine. Each one has a character on it and a whole write-up of the character, and they're all very distinctive wines. We're only kind of revealing these 3, but they're so that it's a surprise when you open it. But it is something that has taken an enormous amount of effort to do. It's a lot harder to make one of these Advent calendars than itself, but it's really been great, and we're excited. I think we're going to launch a pre-sale of this fairly shortly. We'll have it available for pre-sale at the convention, and they're very limited edition. There's a limited amount that we can actually make, and our hope with this is that we're going to do these every year. I mean, this one is actually based on the series. So this is like series. It's all based on. I think we have 8 different Star Trek series and characters represented, and it's really special. It's also a great price. It's only $139, and that's including the shipping. So we're really excited to put this out there, and this has been a labor of love. I mean, really a fun project to work on.
And there was something about a QR code special with that. Can we talk about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, yeah, you tell me, John.
Well, no, you told me that there was a QR code that either came along with that box or was on one of those bottles that got something for purchasers.
Oh, you know what? So I think what you're referring to is that if you do purchase at the convention, if you pre-sale, we do have a little secret special thing.
There we go.
That you will get at the Las Vegas convention. So
there we go.
Worth the trip alone, I think. For that, it'll be. Well, we're going to keep that one under wraps until the day of the convention.
Okay.
When do
All
you
right.
guys expect to ship those advent
I
calendars?
think it's shipping November. There's a set date. I should know. I think it's November 15th, but it's definitely getting to folks in time for the holidays. But
Right. That was my question. Will people have it by December 1st?
yeah, no, our pre-sale window starts in the next week or two and then ends, I believe, in September 15th. And then if you're in that group or there is a set number that we can only make X amount. So I highly recommend signing up for it. And it's going to be a real collector's item for sure.
Cool. And then I think, Earl, we've got one more graphic for the light kit that we want to show off and have you guys comment about that. Let's see if we got it here. Perhaps we do. Yes. Maybe.
I mean, I could just tell you basically.
Okay, we don't have a graphic for that, but yeah.
As often as, like Craig said, everybody came up. Where's the Romulan ale? For years. That was it. But as many people that ask about that, Craig makes a light display for our bottles at the convention, and everybody has been, hey, where do you get these lights? These are incredible. We're like, Craig makes them.
Yeah.
But we actually have created a light set that you can purchase, and that those will be something that you can put on your bar that illuminate the Star Trek 1 and Star Trek Spirit bottles. So
okay. Oh, there we go. So Craig, talk to us. So your video takes over.
This is the packaging it comes in, and then each one is individually. Oh my gosh!
It's like rechargeable with a USB.
So it's a light kit, and then it is pressure sensitive. So you can, when you put your bottle on the base here, it does light up. And this is what I created at our booth, and then we just formed it into a product.
But so many people asked us about it over the years. We were like, all right, well, they probably want something to display their bottles. So that's what prompted that.
Excellent. All right. Well, so speaking of things that other people have asked you for, I've seen many comments in our chat today. There are people who asked about the possibility of a Star Trek beer. Is that something that you've ever considered, or is that like
John, we have our hands so filled with spirits and wine right now. I think our cup is full with those categories.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So there's an answer for you.
I think there is a Star Trek beer. I have seen a Star Trek beer before. So yeah, we're pretty much the wine and spirits guy.
Okay, so there's your answer for that. I forgot who asked that question. By the way, there is a Quadro Triticale beer which you can find. So go check that out too. Your unofficial Star Trek beer. And then let's see. Somebody asked about, well, is there a Scotty Scotch? And then somebody else asked, well, how about something green? Because of course, it's green. Yeah. So any of those in your future, maybe just something you've kicked around as an idea? I see Craig nodding.
We're just nodding our heads. I mean, we do have a whiteboard of things that we are working on. Yeah. And I would say, sure, that is the both of those things are on the list.
Okay.
I personally, and I think I said this at the convention last year, my favorite whiskey profile is peaty. So I would love you guys to do something smoky.
I would actually love to ask the folks, when we were watching Picard, all of a sudden on the table, the Picard and Riker are drinking, what was it? Is it Swafford whiskey?
Yes, right.
Whiskey. And Craig and I are watching and we're pausing and we're like, what is that? Like, where did that come from? So we're always talking about that particular as a brand. I'd love to know if people would be interested in that, because we have absolutely talked about it.
I think he texted me and asked, was that from another episode? It was new to us, as far as we can tell.
Sometimes we see these things for the first time as everybody else does. I think like on the Picard show, the silver label was like we were all watching it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my, all right, I guess we have to make the silver.
Gotta do that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been searching for 2 years for this Scotty bottle.
Yeah.
With the the worn shape, dust on it and things of that nature, which we were playing with. But we're working on that. Believe me, it's just we want to make sure it's authentic and it's true to what's on the prop that was on the show. So that's the difficulty of it, because our fans are so detail oriented
Yeah.
that we can't just say, oh, this looks like it, this could pass. We're beyond that and just searching for the right bottle. We'll probably end up making it and then honing it with that aged look to it.
All right, dear viewers, now is your last chance to get in any comments about what you would like to see, because I've seen more than a few people in the chat today say, what about that George Dickel Saurian brandy bottle? What about that? When's that coming? When are you going to make that? How about Saurian brandy? I imagine one or two people have approached you in the past about that.
So two things. One, I just want to tell you another very quick story. My first meeting with Crispin, we were talking about the fact that we were trying to make that bottle and that we were looking for a brandy, and I think I called it Saurian. Sarah, I mispronounced it.
Oh, how dare you?
And Crispin was like, it's Saurian brandy. And I was like, all right, this is our guy. I immediately was like, that's amazing that you knew that. You know, we are working on that. I will tell you that bottle is extremely challenging. That is a handmade bottle, and it's I'll reveal that we have been working on that, but it's more complicated than the Romulan ale bottle. And yeah, we would love to get that. I mean, full disclosure, would love to get that for the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, which is coming up. That would be our goal. So that is on the production timeline for us. We're working on it.
I love this suggestion in the chat. Somebody, again with no name, says Quark's bar vessels. So you think about all that glassware on the bar behind Quark, and some of those were off-the-shelf items, but probably long out of print.
A lot of that stuff, like, the Raktajino mugs are actually vintage travel mugs, because cars did not have cup holders, so the wide base is supposed to be that they didn't tip over. So I've actually done some research on those. So if you guys do ever think about doing any of that barware, it's mostly vintage stuff.
I mean, we have a lot of stuff in production now. We have a 3-pack that's going to be coming out that's got a whiskey, a gin, and a rum. So that's on the way. And I think also absinthe is probably in our future as well.
Really?
Oh.
Wow.
All right. You did say something green earlier, so
Right.
Very curious. All right. Well, there you have it. Guys, we've run over a little bit, but I mean, we could all talk about this all day long. Mystic says, when was that advent calendar going up for pre-sale again?
Probably in the next week or two. We're just, but before the convention, and probably before the convention.
We'll see. We have an activation at San Diego Comic-Con that
Great.
we'll have it displayed, and you can pre-order at that point.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you can. If you're going to Comic-Con in San Diego, you can actually see it there's a pop-up, a Star Trek pop-up that it'll be available just to look at.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Well, with all of that stuff coming, and some of it very soon, that is the perfect reminder for everybody who is within the sound of our voices to go to StarTrekWines.com and StarTrekSpirits.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Interact, keep an eye on that site, keep an eye on their social media, because obviously they will announce everything there. You will be the first to know. And, today was really primarily about the captain's table. And of course, we talked about the process there. Now is the time to sign up for batch 4, and then that sign up for batch 5 coming very soon. So you can get in on these incredibly limited edition exclusive releases of the Captain's Table line. Guys, thanks. Is there anything that we didn't cover?
Well, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew, Crispin is joining us in Las Vegas at the booth.
Yes.
He'll be there on Saturday. And so, he's there and to talk about the product and talk about the whiskey process. And then if you are a member of the Captain's Table, we highly encourage you to come to this gathering Saturday night, because we're going to be tasting a bunch of really amazing whiskeys. I think Crispin's got some cool things planned for us of future releases and other things. And also we'll have a bunch of these products that we have been talking about there for people to see. So we're excited to kind of, do the captain's table to talk and meet and share some whiskey together and tell some stories. So it should be great.
I think that's one of my favorite things is it's not just a great product. It's not just great packaging. It's not just connected to a franchise that we all appreciate, but this is one of those situations where membership has its benefits, where, you get the challenge coin, you get the cool product, but then it's stuff like this. You get to meet and hang out and enjoy this together. It's like Norman said earlier, this isn't just for sitting on a shelf. It's for making memories with friends.
Absolutely.
And that's what you guys do. So thank you so much, all three of you. And Holly, thanks. This was great.
Yeah,
I could do this once a week. We just hang out and talk about booze.
Yeah,
Why
talk
not?
about whiskey in the middle of the day on a Friday. Fantastic.
I love that. All right. So thank you to everyone who joined us live or later on this special broadcast from Roddenberry Podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed meeting our friends and learning a little bit more about Star Trek wines and Star Trek spirits and the exclusive Captain Table collection. Don't forget, you can explore the products and sign up at any time at StarTrekWines.com and StarTrekSpirits.com.
Also, remember to enjoy these products responsibly. It is the logical thing to do.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Like